commend our distinguished colleague from Georgia, and I listened very carefully, and I appreciate your reference to the fact that I will be offering at the earliest possible time an amendment to lay some foundation in this proposed legislation addressing nuclear power. And as I listen to what you say, I basically agree. But Senator, as you well know, if we were to have included these provisions, either during the course of the committee markup or indeed now in the amendment process, we would get blue-slipped. This type of legislation, which I support, Senator, must originate, as you well know, having served in the House of Representatives, and then come to the Senate. So as colleagues follow this and say to themselves, this senator brings forth very constructive proposals, why didn't the managers put that in the bill? I think you'd have to agree with me. We would be faced with a blue slip problem and our bill would come to a dead halt.
Well, I appreciate the distinguished senator's, may I address the distinguished senator through the chair?
Senator from Georgia.
I appreciate your generous comments and the work that you put into this, and I will publicly acknowledge that in the committee and privately, you have stated eloquently to me your support for the concept of expanding and empowering nuclear energy. I also understand what our block is, the blue slip. And we have, though, and I referred in my closing remarks, we've got to start putting our biases aside to allow the full debate to take place on what we're going to do to lower energy costs and reduce carbon. If we talk about nuclear being good but aren't willing to address it, and somebody's going to blue slip or put a hole or kill a bill simply because it has nuclear in it, then we're not serious, in my judgment, about reducing the cost of energy, reducing the amount of carbon, or really dealing with the problem ahead. And I'm not speaking to the distinguished senator of Virginia because I know where his head and his heart is, and Senator Lieberman has expressed the same thing. But there are others, there are biases on both sides. We need to put our biases away and allow every viable alternative to be debated on the floor of the United States Senate and voted on. Up until the time we do that, we are just wasting our time, and unfortunately, we're wasting a lot of our taxpayers' money who are paying exorbitant prices for the problem today.
Would the senator yield?
I was delighted to.
My friend. And I just want to say, I wonder if the senator knows that Exelon has given its support to this bill, and also NRG, is that right? And they're coal and nuclear, and Exelon is nuclear. So I just wonder if my friend understands that Senator Warner is going to do an amendment, as he has said from day one, and I'm sure you'll help him with that amendment. And the amendment probably has a very excellent chance of passing. I just want to make sure my friend knows that companies that build nuclear power plants endorse this bill without any changes. There are going to be more changes. And under some of the modeling, I wonder if my friend has looked at what the projections are for building nuclear power plants without one amendment on this bill. Does my friend know the answer to my question as he looked at some of the modeling that we've gotten from this administration on this point?
Well, I thank the distinguished chairman, and I am aware that some of the companies that are in the nuclear business have endorsed this, and let me say this, and if I stand to be corrected, I would appreciate your correcting me, but those who are heavily invested in nuclear that is operating today are in support of this because they're going to sell their carbon credits to those who are not heavily invested in nuclear and are generating coal. That motivation is a motivation that is economic as much as anything else. What I would like to see is for us to get everybody on a level playing field where we've got more nuclear and we've got less coal and we've got less gas and we've got less oil generating electricity, then we'll be better off. So this is a winners and losers game in terms of the carbon tax or the carbon credits. And those who have a low carbon footprint are going to have credits to sell, and those who have a high carbon footprint who use coal or oil are going to have to pay a lot of money to buy it. And that's why there's some biases within the same industry that are for and against.
Senator from
Let me just, if I might ask unanimous consent to have 5 minutes so that the three of us can engage freely, because I think this is a very important point. First of all, I think for my friend to say that these two companies have no plans to build future power plants or expand their plants, that makes no sense. I mean, I haven't read their annual report, but for him to say the only reason is because they're going to make some money off the off the allowances is, I just think I don't think is really looking at the plans for these companies, number one, but they can speak for themselves. And the second part, which my friend didn't answer, is that in the modeling we've seen, without one amendment, it looks as if there will be built over the period and lifetime of this bill 150 nuclear plants. So without one amendment, and there's going to be amendments. So the whole point is, and I've never been a great fan of nuclear energy for one reason: I worry about the waste. I worry about the waste. I worry about having all this waste. So that's my issue, okay? And I've said many times, there's a few of us here who care about that, and there are others who seem to feel comfortable that it's totally safe, and we'll have that debate. But the fact is, when you pass legislation such as this, there's a winner here. The winner goes to those energy sources that don't produce carbon, just on its face. That's why we give so much for clean coal, because we're trying to make sure that we keep going with coal and that it's clean coal. So I just would say to my friend, and then I'm going to yield to my time to Senator Warner to go back and forth, I'm really pleased he came over here. I love working with Senator Isaacson. He is a friend. He is a pal. We don't see eye to eye on this particular issue, because I believe that to have people who are nuclear power plant proponents say that this bill doesn't do enough, I think just means that they haven't really looked at what the projections are, ipso facto, because it is a clean energy source in terms of carbon. And I wanted to make that point. But I want to thank my friend for the tenor and tone of his remarks, and I would yield the remainder of my time to Senator Warner.
I Mr. President, thank the Chairman. I just say to my good friend from Georgia, I have talked extensively with a wide range, as you have, of the industrial individuals who represent nuclear plants today and forthcoming. The Chairman is quite correct. A number of these companies really are planning to go ahead boldly and courageously and build new plants. Given the uncertainties of where they're going to get the parts, can they be manufactured in the United States? Given the uncertainties whether there are enough trained people to operate these plants, they're going ahead. So I don't believe it's just a profit motive. But as I talk to these individuals, it's clear to me that they're watching the jurisdiction of the Energy Committee as having a great portion of the nuclear responsibility, the Tax Committee, and they cautioned against doing too much in this bill for fear of interrupting a process that's in place with the Energy Committee, the Tax Committee, and such other committees as deal with nuclear power, because that responsibility does spread over quite a number of committees in the Senate. So we could not simply put into our bill, or recommend it by way of amendment at this time, such a comprehensive amendment, because we know it is disruptive to the work that apparently is going on in other committees as it relates to nuclear power. But perhaps as I'll reflect on this as to whether or not I could add in my amendment, or you might wish to modify my amendment to take those portions of yours which do not impact Blue Slip. I just think that that's something we don't want to get tangled up with here, and doesn't really infringe on the jurisdiction of the other committees, and let's see if we can make it work.
I thank the Chairman Warner, and to Chairman Boxer, first of all, if I said, I very well could have, if I said that I knew they weren't going to build more power plants in the future, I didn't mean to say that. What I meant to say was that those nuclear companies that were the most supportive were the ones that were way ahead in the building of nuclear plants, already generated far more carbonless energy because of that, and we're going to sell their credits. And I'm a business guy. I think making money is a great deal. Are going to sell their credits to those companies that are more coal and carbon producing friendly. And I am aware, you're right, I didn't talk about the modeling. The modeling does project more plants in the first 42, 43 years of the life of the bill to 2050. However, I would submit to you that a modernized nuclear title would allow those plants to come on safely, more quickly, and quicker address the carbon issue than the way we are currently caught in this conundrum of the anti-nuclear versus the pro-nuclear, so we do nothing to empower an industry that we know generates 73% of our carbonless energy today. But I thank the distinguished chairman for her patience, distinguished senator from Virginia for his contribution. I look forward to working with you in any way I can to hopefully move us forward on this, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Again, I commend our colleague. It was a very constructive contribution to the dialogue on this bill.
Senator from Tennessee is recognized.